located? Is he located in Illinois? Is he located in Michigan? Where is the defendant? So sometimes the issues of venue, normally the federal courts want you to bring the lawsuit in the state where the crime, where the defendant is located, where the defendant is domiciled. If the defendant is domiciled is unknown, then it could be a state where the crime is committed. So if I'm launching a attack, if I've compromised a computer in Illinois sitting in Michigan, and I'm using the computer in Illinois to actually launch the attack, where am I located? So interesting questions, and of course, if the venue is not proper, it becomes hard to try a case because you're gonna say the venue is not proper, Your Honor, we need to shift this to Illinois. And if the motion is granted, all of a sudden you have to contact the prosecutors in Illinois, give them the entire case files, this delays everything, costs more money. There is also a statute of limitation, 2 years for civil actions, and gathering evidence is hard, and that's why we introduced that course where we talk about computer forensics, what kind of evidence do you need to try cyber criminals. And I think there's some talks of bringing that course back up with a little bit more beefed up content, which not only covers computer forensics, but also some cyber laws and some electronic discovery, content. So further, there is a juvenile issue that most of the people who commit these crimes are juveniles, and in a juvenile proceeding, there is nobody's convicted. Okay, if you're convicted as a juvenile, you just get the status of a juvenile delinquent. Okay, so all that is instead of being a juvenile, now he's a juvenile delinquent because he's found to be guilty of doing this. There's no conviction, and there's no criminal conviction on record. So there are some interesting issues, especially with cyber crimes, when we deal with those. I believe that is the last slide that I have. Okay. So thank you for your attention, and I will open it up for questions now.
Nice.
Questions? Yes.
Two of them that I think some of us will come in contact more often than this high-profile hacking stuff you've covered is one, port driving, and two, port scanning. That's something that I think a few of us have played around with, but if I was driving around and I was in another country, let's say Canada, I didn't have cell service, and outside someone's house they left their Wi-Fi open, so I connected to it to hop on Facebook and talk to some friends. Is that considered breaking the law? Like if you fail to secure your own wireless network and I connect to it, is that considered trespassing?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I have to look at.
I have the answer for you.
Okay.
According to Michigan law, it's against the law after 5 years.
So connecting to an unsecured.
Connecting to, so it's
Accessing.
intentionally unauthorized. These are the two words. So intentionally, so you intentionally to access to something, right? Number two is unauthorized. You're not authorized to use that various Wi-Fi. So these are the two keywords.
So war driving is no.
Driving, I'm not sure.
War driving is when you drive around and find a bunch of open access points.
Yeah, but
Yes.
yeah.
Dude, I mean, isn't it accessing the computer?
Intentionally unauthorized.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's.
I think it is.
I think that this would be considered unauthorized access. Let's see, accessing to be fraud, obtaining something of value would probably come under that.
And then port scanning, is it legal to scan someone else's computer? I know it's come about time and time again where people argue, if you put a server online and people scan it, or is it legal to go up to someone's house and rattle the doorknob, digitally speaking? What is the legality of that? Because some tools like Nmap, you can just set a command and it randomly
Well, you're
finds servers.
accessing. First of all, you're accessing, right? But are you accessing to obtain something of value?
No.
In the case of you're using the internet, you're obtaining something of value.
What about obtaining information? Just accessing a computer and obtaining information. If I'm checking my Facebook through somebody else's, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, Facebook's
these
not
are-
really valuable.
I'll see.
Again, if you do it on a government computer, you might have some issues. But I don't think that these are really the crimes that.
I think depends on whether you're authorized or not. For the company. Yeah, for example, if you have a job on OEU, like a system administrator, and the SAT will give you the authorization to do something with the OEU, with the authorization, you can do that. But without authorization, you can't. Otherwise, you are good. I do.
Well, port scanning is a little tricky because let's say someone just scans a range and all of a sudden you're a net administrator of a small company, you're like, hey, this guy scanned me, but my server is front facing, it's open to the world, but he scanned me. That's
I think that I have to say that port scanning is probably okay unless you get into a government computer where you're trespassing. Because trespassing is just kind of stepping on the computer. Whether a certain port is open or not, is that considered deemed to be information? It's probably hard to prove under this. Information will have to be something more than this port is open. Okay. And if you want to think about something of plain value, then information about what port is open is that valuable. That could be possibly yes. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe use that information to derive value. And the element is the value. Do you have value? I mean, you're selling that information to someone. I'm compiling this information on what ports are open on what websites, and I'm selling in the black market for $100. Now that's something of value. Okay. In that case, you could be charged with obtaining this information and getting some value out of it. So it really depends on what you do. If you just do a post scan and it's of no value, you probably can't come under this. Is that information? I don't know. Probably possibly for the maybe it's not information. But and it's not a government computer.
The question, I will forward it to a professor. Also at Brady Law School,
Right.
And his professor, I have some videos online. Brady Law School professor Corbett Patrick. I think he should have the right answer because he's an expert of cybersecurity.
Who was
Patrick Corbett. Patrick Corbett.
Professor Corbett
Yeah.
Patrick.
He's
Oh,
the same.
Patrick Corbett.
Is he in the Auburn Hills campus or?
Yes.
Okay.
I think both, but he's in the capital.
Okay.
His main office is, but we have some collaboration. Yeah, he
Teaches
gave
us.
an invited talk, you remember?
I'm sorry?
He gave an invited talk to USA. You attended, it's at the night.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you email me, because this question is very, very important for the students.
Yeah, we need to actually, I think that it's better to,
Definitely the answer rather than a grade and.
yeah, it's better to actually compile a list of questions and create like a FAQ.
That's good.
And then post that up on your website for the cybersecurity.
Yeah, good
fund.
idea.
And then, have some, some case laws.
Hey, James,
statutes.
who is the secretary?
Trip goes take
Yeah.
care of
Could you please
Questions?
select the questions, then we will try to get the answers.
If you are confronted and accused of possibly committing a crime, cybercrime, what should your response be? Should you respond or should you lawyer up?
shut your mouth.
I would say always lawyer up.
Yeah.
He's a
Never
lawyer.
talk to the police.
I know.
We don't want to answer anything when you are, even if you ask an innocuous question, we'll go easy on you. You're always better off not answering anything. Taking the fifth, so to
That
say.
sounds bad.
That's your lawyer calling, right?
Yeah. But if it's just a, what's your name? I mean, they can ask you that. Where do you live? That's probably okay.
Well, plead the fifth.
Did you do this? I can't answer that question. Right.
Let's say you do intercept a message and then you put it in a text file somewhere and you encrypt it with like a thing called true crypt or something like that. How would the prosecutor then decide, gather the evidence on you?
Did everybody hear that question?
That's a good.
Yes. Okay, so you intercept a message that's got lots of bank numbers and personal stuff, but you don't want to be, charged with, with any kind of a wiretap sort of a crime. So what you do is you encrypt it with a really, really strong encryption key, and the prosecutor has no way of knowing whether you've got the content or not. Okay. So what happens? Anybody?
Wasn't there a really, really big case about a year ago where somebody was trying to be prosecuted and he had a really good encryption scheme using like a TPM chip on his laptop that nobody could access, and there was some sort of, I don't remember what the verdict was, but he claimed that he forgot the password or couldn't remember, so something happened. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
Because that's come up a few times before, so it's...
That does come up, and we, in the United States, this comes under, this comes under the, I guess the Fifth Amendment again, that you can't be forced to testify against yourself, essentially. And so what American courts have sort of treated saying that password as a testimony that can be construed to be in violation of the Personal Rights Amendment. And so, therefore, in U.S., I think there was a case that I think what you're referring to was a Colorado case where this guy had some really shady deals and he encrypted his laptop. And the police got a wind of it. And I think the thing was that police kind of knew that the wife knows the password but doesn't want to give it up, so she was asserting her Fifth Amendment rights. So police had that, because anytime you have a conversation on a prison phone, there is an expectation of privacy. They can listen on it. A lot of people don't know that. They say, hey, this is wiretapping. They can't tap into my phone. But when you're if you're a prisoner, if you're an inmate, they can listen in. Okay. So she was talking to her husband who was in custody, and she sort of revealed to him that she's not going to give the password because she's going to assert the Fifth Amendment. And so in that case, I don't know if anything happened, whether there was appeal or not. I don't believe it was. In that case, the judge ruled that we're not asking you to speak the password. So in other words, we're not asking you to testify against yourself. We're not asking you to self-incriminate. All we're saying are, give us your laptop in an unencrypted form. Okay, so they changed the question, and I believe the judge ruled that yes, you're allowed to ask that. So they had to encrypt the password, uncrypt the laptop and give it to you. So it's not that, okay, so I guess if that answers your question. Now, if you claim that I don't remember it, that's going to be much harder, right? And I think someone at the border there's no expectation of privacy when you're going across the Canada border. They can search you all they want, So there was someone who had some really interesting pictures of who he claimed to be his wife on the laptop, and our search resulted in give us the password. It was encrypted, and I think he claimed that he didn't remember the password, something like that. But they locked him up, and I think that it was eventually they were able to get him. In England and other countries where there's a lot of this, personal PGP, pretty good privacy kind of things that are very rampant there. There is no Fifth Amendment, so they can't actually throw you in jail until you give them the password. So Fifth Amendment protects you, but I think that is sort of getting whittled away a little bit, because now they're rephrasing the question. We need to see this laptop in an unencrypted form. Now they're not asking you to tell them what the password is. They just want you to give the evidence in the state that you can read it. So essentially, but I don't think we've settled this question once and for all. We're going to see more of this, especially as encryption standards become more and more tight. And a lot of the times people encrypt it and they just forget what the encryption password is because it just happens in the background, right? Your hard drive is probably encrypted, and you don't know what the password was that you encrypted because it's all transparent. Now, if you log out and log back in, they can force you to log back in. We want you to log in, and then of course, I don't remember my login password. It's going to be a pretty hard sell, right? So, I think they're able to get. Most of the people are able to, most of the time, police is able to get information. I have not heard of many, crimes that have gone unprosecuted or not prosecuted because the data was encrypted. They're able to find ways to get to it. Okay. So the answer to your question is don't do the crime, so you won't do the time, right? That's the simplest and the surest way to avoid any kind of trouble. But I do believe that there are some academic sort of questions that that will come into. I mean, there is no fair use in the internet crimes and the copyright law. Where you can copy and still have a defense. Perhaps these are specific to the academic world where you're coming up with these questions, and I think it might be a good idea to start a little frequently asked questions page and take these questions, research it, and have some of you can go and talk to these professors and dig into some of the code, some of the U.S. codes and some of the case law and read it, because then you'll see what the way the courts have resolved this question. So that's really what is precedential. All right. Okay. So.
Do you want to summarize what people should know? Just big picture, what somebody who's going to be doing cybersecurity, experimentation should know before they start doing anything.
Cybersecurity experimentation, I think the biggest watch out would be packet sniffers. Okay. That would be the one that you should really watch out for, because you're really seeing the content. Okay. And other than that, don't just be cognizant of the sites that could potentially use you as a launching pad. Okay. So, because for example, if you're, I don't know if this has happened, but if your computer is so badly, so unprotected that someone can launch a attack using your computer as a robot on a national security asset, then I think you could have some issues there. So just kind of keep your patches, especially when they have to do with security, up to date. The third thing is to, there's a lot of times of phishing. Phishing attacks are becoming very, very smart now. So there'll be emails from people that you really you're waiting for, and so just be careful about what you read when you get an email, because you get installed. So those are just things that to watch out for. Basically, I don't know if there's any way to summarize, but I just kind of keep reading and go to the website on Department of Justice, the website for cybercrimes, and they usually have the latest 10 cases that they prosecuted, so you kind of will see what's going on. A lot of it that I did not cover is to do with intellectual property crimes, where people steal, other people's copyrights, they make it look like trademark violations. But that gives you the complete set. And finally, I guess what you really have to be careful of is illegitimate material, including child pornography, because sometimes you cannot tell. You really have to be careful of that. I don't want to say that because everybody's looks the other way. It's a fact. It's just there's other ways to have fun.
I would think that would be on the bottom of the list.
I think I just tell you what happened in this situation, because it is addictive.
All right.
It is addictive, and I'll tell you what happened. There was a really, really high-placed official at the Chrysler, Daimler Chrysler at the time. One fine day, people walked into his office, and he was a vice president or something. Took his computer and asked to leave the same day. Yet he was fired on the spot. And I don't even know, it was not disclosed what kind of, because the corporate discloses what kind of content they had, and then they could be charged themselves. So it's not disclosed what he had on his, he was a very person that I worked with. I mean, he had funded research at Oakland University several times, and it was such a shock. So that's why I bring it up, because I do hear about this in a very shocking manner sometimes, and so I make it a point to talk about it, and if I'm saying something to offend somebody, don't take it as okay. It's better to say, put it out there, talk about the 10,000 pound or whatever, 5,000 pound gorilla, rather than just to let it sit on the side somewhere. Okay. So that's why I want to talk about it. You guys are young, just make the right decisions as much as you can. Okay. All right.
Wise words. Thank you.
Wise words.
That was outstanding.